Boys and girls, good afternoon. Welcome back to another episode of High Top Sports. The show is, of course, brought to you by BetUS. Going to be talking about the first round a little bit, or some kind of reaction to that. These are the viewerships from those games. Talk about tomorrow's games a little bit, and then got a little bit of a sneak peek headed into that next round of playoffs, which will be happening on New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. Got Cody the Professor with us right now. Cody, how you doing, man? How was first round of playoffs? There was a lot of reaction, a lot of thoughts and opinions about it. How are you feeling about it?
Yeah, I'm done with the auto bidding. I hate it. I think it should be the 12 best teams play. Obviously, when you have a couple teams in there like Indiana, obviously probably didn't deserve to be there because of strength of schedule. They beat up on a lot of slackies all year long. I'm not saying anything about Kurt Signetti and the boys. They
No,
did a
that's your boy.
wonderful job
Yeah.
of
Don't be.
turning that program around, but they were not ready. SMU was a prototypical SMU. The quarterback threw a bunch of picks. Uh, Penn State was they're okay. They're good enough to win. I think they should be in there. And then Texas Clemson, probably the best game, I think, right? They didn't have the best viewership, but the best game, watchable wise.
Yeah, I
Clemson
guess.
tries to
Yeah,
make it
low
tight.
bar. I mean, out of the four, yeah, I could see how it was probably the best game because the Ohio State Tennessee game. The Ohio State Tennessee game had the best. So here's what I think. I think Indiana deserved to be there just because you can't really. I understand the strength of schedule. I think the problem was the matchup. They should have played SMU. They should have played maybe Clemson, right? And I think kind of the auto bid. I think you should get in, but I don't think you should have got an automatic buy, right? Like that's where the thing should have be adjusted. Ohio State Tennessee. That was, I mean, on paper, that was the perfect matchup. Ohio State just bodied them, and Ohio State honestly looked like they should have looked like all year long. Like that's the Ohio State that everybody's been talking about, that everybody
Yeah.
was clamoring for, that this is going to be the best team ever assembled, just given the talent on the roster from recruiting and the money they went and spent on the transfer portal. That what they look like and how they dominated Tennessee was how it should have been. I think Tennessee was a little overrated or not overrated, highly rated. I think overrated too. And I think they kind of just squeaked by because their SEC schedule probably wasn't as tough as others. So they kind of just
Yeah.
floated in that 7 and 8 seed where they probably should have been back a little bit. And Ohio State, honestly, should have been higher up. And Tennessee and Penn State would have been a better matchup, I think. I think the problem was the matchups. It wasn't the teams that made it, it was how they all came together. You got SMU, Tennessee, Clemson, Indiana, Boise State, Arizona State. Both of those teams those teams could have played each other in the first round. That would have been a great matchup. I think the whole thing would have been a lot better. But you can see where the viewership is, right? I think everyone felt what was going to happen with Penn State at SMU. Texas, Clemson, I think the viewership tuned in to see just maybe a little bit, but everyone thought the Ohio State Tennessee game was going to be good. And then Notre Dame, Indiana, the only game on Friday night. I think they say, hey, can Indiana do something special? I think Notre Dame gives Georgia a possible run next week.
Yeah, my biggest problem is they made these games and I understand why they did it. It's their money draw games, right? IU, Notre Dame. Notre Dame is only 2.5 hours away, so you are going to get a massive draw money wise for that at Notre Dame, right? And that's what they wanted to do. That's kind of what these game matchups were about. Texas Clemson, same thing. I think the only oddity was SMU Penn State, and I think they said the hell with it. These are
Well, I mean,
probably
they
the two
got a
most
seeding.
lackluster
You think
teams.
they gave the seeding based on these first round matchups? I don't think so.
Absolutely. Yes, I think they were money draw games for sure because if let's play with it a little bit maybe, right? What other team minus Texas, and you can't do Texas Ohio State, looks good on this
Why
card
can't you do
here?
Texas Ohio State? I mean, that would have been a blunder in the first round. You would have been taking out two big dogs. Look, I think
Exactly. You can't do that.
giving the two buys really kind of put things into motion. Because what Notre Dame was 5, right? Or no, they weren't 5. Who was 5? Oh, Texas was 5, which they should have been because
Yeah.
they were basically in the round. They pushed back a little bit. Then Notre Dame notched back a little bit more. Like I don't think it was a money grab thing. I think that it played out like it should have because Ohio State, Tennessee, and Indiana didn't move. They were already there. The only teams that got shuffled around were uh, Texas. Clemson obviously jumps in. They weren't even in the mix because they weren't even part of it. So they jump in and they take that 12 bid because that's where that fifth conference championship goes. And then SMU hangs on by a thread because they kind of make the announcement that no team will get pulled out just by losing which I do like. I think that if you're in there, you shouldn't be. Look, you may move around in the seedings a little bit, but you shouldn't get removed from the playoffs. There shouldn't be a penalty for playing in the conference championship. So when people are like, "Oh, SMU shouldn't be in there, Alabama should be," I disagree because you kind of made the notion that there is value in conference championships, which there should be.
I could care less about Alabama getting in. I just feel like the way that the games were set up, it seemed a little money grabby to me. But that's just my thought on
Yeah,
the whole
I
ordeal.
think
I think
take the tinfoil off.
IU would have been I think IU SMU would have been a better game, visibility to watch. You do Penn State and Notre Dame. I think that's a better visibility to watch, and then
Oh,
let
that
those
would have
guys
been a
fight
hell
it
of
out.
a
I think
first round. But you can't. Again, that's not how it was put together. It was based off rankings. I think the rankings
yeah,
were right.
nobody
Yeah,
knows how it was put together. It
and to be
wasn't. It was
honest,
based off seeding that was kind of
people
Fugazi.
Fugazi. People were upset about how the scoring went, but I was like, bro, I watched a game on Christmas 2 days ago where Houston scored 2 points. It was 31-2. Like shit just gets lopsided at times. And to be perfectly honest with you, in a 12-team playoff, I think the first round should be a bloodbath. I think maybe one of the games, and it should have been the Texas, Tennessee, Ohio State game, should have been closer because those were the two closest rated seeds, right? But you got a
Yeah.
6 versus 11 Notre Dame in Indiana. It should be a pretty big spread. You've got Texas and Clemson, which is 5-12. That should be a pretty big spread. I think maybe SMU is 11. I think Indiana was 7-10, and Ohio State and Tennessee were 9-8 or something. I don't know. But those were the two who were closer together. And I think that's honestly how it went was how it should have gone. Maybe you throw in an extra SEC team. One of these games is a little bit closer, but I think just the seeding was the bigger issue because if you bring Boise State and Arizona State out of the bye, put them into one of these games, completely different weekend.
Yeah. Well, also didn't help that SMU decided to give 14 points and pick sixes to Penn State to make that game pretty much irrelevant too.
I mean, dude,
so
home field advantage is a cheat code for that first round, dude. Because you're like SMU going up to Penn State, like just completely unknown territory. Indiana Notre Dame was pretty even keel, but things like that, it felt very lopsided. We've got a great slate tonight and tomorrow. I'm actually really excited for these games. Again, of course, our show is brought to you by BetUS. And when you go to betus.com, use the code YouTube150, you get back 150% on your first deposit, then 125 on your next two, up to $2,000. Take advantage of that. Again, it's bowl season. It's a great time to be a part of it. Some fantastic games. I think 6 of these games have gone into overtime. We've got Navy losing to Oklahoma right now, right? Navy is. So a lot of great
Navy
games.
is.
I'm excited for these games, though. There's a lot of NFL potential in here. And obviously, we have our NFL draft show with Cody that breaks this all down with arguably the two best quarterbacks that will be going off the board, and Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders. Travis Hunter, obviously projected to be a top 5 round draft pick. He's playing as well in that Colorado game. Colorado versus BYU. Excited because I kind of called it the secondary, the consolation Big 12 championship. Though it was, I mean, depending on how the last week went for the Big 12, it could have been BYU and Colorado. Like that's how close it was between Iowa State, Arizona State. Iowa State played Arizona State, right? That was the Big 12 championship. BYU and Colorado, all 4 of them were literally came down to the last game of the season of who was going to play. And I even want to say like maybe Texas Tech had a chance, depending on it was nuts. So I'm excited to see what it could have been with BYU and to see how this Colorado team is going to transition as well from this past year going into next year. So we'll see a little bit of that. And then of course Miami, we kind of made fun of them all season long on ourselves of not playing anybody. The 2 times they needed to win, they choke. How will they go against a pretty sound Iowa State team? Should be good. And I'm pulling for Vandy against Georgia Tech. That is a fantastic matchup. Just 2 teams that were like absolute dogs in their conferences this year that ruined some people's seasons, right? Georgia Tech obviously ruining Miami's, just getting FSU to a blunder of a start. Vandy taking out Alabama. I mean, they're both with just dogs at quarterbacks, just with the biggest heart of you could ask for. Like, what a game.
They played kind of the similar style offense too.
Yeah, it should be a good one, dude. It should be. It
That's-
might be the best bowl
This
game.
might be
outside the
better
play.
than
Yeah.
yeah, for sure. This might be the best bowl game coming in the playoffs is that Georgia Tech Vanderbilt game. I think truthfully, I think Miami's going to hang half 100 on Iowa State. I think Cam Ward's going to come out and try to really push his draft stock. They have not been hit with with transfer portal guys that have really played a lot. They still have that offensive line. They still have most of their defensive line. Linebackers are still there. They've influxed some corners, but everybody's pretty much playing. So I don't see like where a couple of years ago where they rolled out like Anthony Richardson for Florida rolled out against the threes or whatever it was against Oklahoma, and got absolutely just torched. So
So
I think they got. Go ahead.
good. Yeah, the mock draft right now is Giants are getting the first pick, which obviously could change next week too, or this week and next week with the last 2 weeks of the NFL, who gets that first round pick. But in a way, these two guys are fighting for millions of dollars here of who's going to be that first round draft pick. That's what they're fighting for.
Yeah.
So right now they've got obviously Norwich's projected to go after either it's Cam or Shador. Who do you want? Now, what's going to fall down to that is this game, and of course you're going to have pro day. Could both these guys pull out of the combine because of their stock being so high? Is there a need?
I would.
So yeah, I think I would too. Especially if this game goes well, right? Both going up against feasible matchups. So we'll see how that goes. Again, then New England has a second round pick. I guess they're comfortable with their quarterback play because I thought they had at one point were looking at a quarterback, but they're projected to get the edge out of Penn, and Jags looking like they might get Travis Hunter, which I love that. That's going to be cool to see. And Tennessee Titans are now projected to land Cam Ward at number 4, and I feel like they just drafted a quarterback not too long ago, a couple years ago. I feel like we did it on our show, so kind of interesting there.
Yeah, he was. I guess melting the cup didn't help him none, huh?
Yeah, mayonnaise ain't working out. I mean, he's getting paid through his mayonnaise deals. Look, we'll talk a little bit about this. Obviously, we're kind of a week out, but again, I feel like these games seem a little bit better, but the bottom two seem lopsided. With Texas, Arizona State, that seems extremely lopsided. I think people feel confident in Arizona State, but I would be shocked if they're able to hold their own against Texas. Boise State, I think they'll give Penn State a good run. I think with Ashton Jeanty, I think it'll be closer than it looks. That Oregon Ohio State game is going to be the game of the damn year. I mean it was the first time they played was game of the year. Not game of the year, but it was a great game.
I think this is probably the best forced slate of playoff games that you could really have. I think Penn State is with that run defense is going to really try to stifle Boise State. And Penn State's not scoring a bunch, right? But they're just a hard-nosed grinder team. They got an elite tight end that's going to go first round. And so their matchup for Boise State is perfect. Notre Dame, probably the most complete team in all of college football right now against Georgia. It's going to be a great one. And then obviously the rematch of Oregon, Ohio State.
You know what's interesting is this is, again, new territory for all teams playing. Resting in football is always beneficial. And so Georgia, Oregon, Arizona State, Boise, they're going on their third week of rest, basically rolling into this game. And I compare this to MLB playoffs because they have adjusted their playoff schedule where there's the wild card game is no longer a game, it's a series. So you've got sometimes a 3-game series before you go into that first round of playoffs. And baseball you play every damn day. Like that is a rhythm sport. So when you play like that, and again, for the last couple of years, the team that has came in from the wild card has won and went on because they find a hot spot and they get rolling when they go into the playoffs versus the team that has that first round bye of the wild card. They sit for 5 days, which is not normal in baseball. Now, obviously sitting in football is normal. 3 weeks, is that normal? And so it'll be interesting to see if all 4 teams that enter in, which would be Texas, which seems feasible, Penn State, which seems realistic, Ohio State literally found something. Like whether Tennessee was good or not, it's a mental thing of like, yeah, we can unscrew this thing we want to. Will Howard's gonna be rolling with a sense of confidence. Jeremiah Smith's like, I'm him. Like this team is finding a spot. And again, they've kind of lost to Oregon just by a blunder at the end there. I would be a little petrified if I'm Oregon here. And then Notre Dame, again, like you just said, I think they're most complete team. I picked them to go to the championship against Oregon originally. I think Georgia's going to be a little bit down a few. Again, you never want to sleep on Kirby and Georgia, but it would something to kind of keep in mind if all 4 of the teams that entered in by playing a first round, did it have an impact? Because you got to get those first round jitters out of the way. You played in a playoff game. You know what I mean? You kind of got settled and you know what to expect.
Yeah, I think you got a couple teams like obviously Georgia and Oregon that this long rest could be
Detriment.
a
Could be.
factor of them losing, a detriment. Yeah. Well, number one, Georgia sleepwalks the entire first half anyway. But I'm going to tell you this: they sleepwalk against bad opponents. You let Notre Dame get up, they're not going to let you come back. It's not going to be. It's not going to. They get up 21, it's done. Georgia. So it's time to wake up if you're a Georgia Bulldog. They have to score in the first quarter. They have to score immediately. They need to score on their first scripted drive. If that doesn't happen, I'm going to say an L for Georgia. I don't think they can pull it off against a complete team like Notre Dame. Again, Oregon and Ohio State. Ohio State's probably going to go up 14 on Oregon right off rip. I think Oregon's going to look very rusty. They cannot score in the third quarter. It seems like they have been worse and worse weekly against the run, and I think Ohio State's going to run it right down their throat for the first half, and then it's going to be that high-powered Will Stein offense to see if they can fight back in the third and fourth quarter, and hopefully they can stop the bleeding in the first half to where they don't go up 21 plus points on those teams. Texas going into Arizona State, I don't think it's going to even be a matchup the way that Texas played the other day.
Yeah.
I think they can score at will. And I think the only team that doesn't really matter is Boise State because they lean on Gentry, and Gentry can roll off the couch. Genty can roll off the couch, and you're just handing the ball off to him. So there's no rhythm there to get going. There's no
that's a good point.
But
I think Penn State, they're in a weird place because they're going into this game of playing two massive games against, reasonable opponents. They played obviously against Oregon in the Big Ten Championship. They played SMU, who played in the AC Championship. So they've kind of been beat up and been tested and have played in big moments the last 2 weeks leading into this moment here against Boise. And again, I don't disagree with what you said about Boise, but I think Penn State is in a really good place to find themselves in a great opportunity. And then if we got Notre Dame, Penn State, that one to me, that's an interesting matchup there too. So we'll see again. Oregon and Georgia, not sleeping on them, but it will be. I could be completely wrong. It could be the complete opposite. We're all four teams that were rested, and again, I think you have a bit more of a speak to that of like resting in football is much more valuable than resting in baseball. I will agree with that. We see it in the NFL.
3 weeks is a long time.
That's the thing. A week is different than 2.5 weeks. You know what I mean? Like you can get a little lethargic. You got the holidays. Everyone's drinking eggnog, getting a little fat. So we'll see. But look, great slate of games of the next couple of 5 days here, starting today, Friday night, going into tomorrow. And then we'll be spoiled from Monday, Tuesday, and of course Wednesday, where those two big matchups are, which is, look, I mean, people complain about the first round. I think that was the fact that we get the second round is, more games. I'm okay with it. I think we'll be okay. I think they'll get it figured out, and we got to chill out. But hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you did, smash the like button, subscribe, and of course, make sure you guys check out BetUS. Use code U2150. We'll see you boys in the next one. Peace and love, baby.